What's up guys, it's Aaronitmar, and today we are going to be digging deep into Brawl. And if you thought Smash 64 and Melee had some interesting info, well then you just buckle in, because Brawl is a doozy. A ton of things that were planned for previous games finally came to fruition in Brawl, such as the dream that Sakurai had in the first game of having final smashes. Melee's assist capsule item also became a reality in the form of assist trophies. And finally, third-party characters would join the fight. But as much content as Brawl seems to have, even more was seemingly planned. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush, so let's start this video by talking about the Forbidden 7. But first, today's video is sponsored by Amino. Amino is the social media app that has topics and communities for anything and everything, and now it's getting even better with the launch of their brand new Stories feature. Think of Amino Stories like other social apps have, but they don't disappear after 24 hours. Amino reached out to me and I've decided to join the fun by making some fun condensed content for my stories. So check out the link down below to download Amino, search for my username, and follow me to know when I post a new story. The Forbidden 7 are a fan name given to 7 characters whose data was found within Brawl's files, but who never got included in the game for one reason or another. These names are Dixie, Dr. Mario, Mewtwo, Roy, Prom I, Toon Sheik, and Toon Zelda. Now, most of these are just pretty straightforward and you can't really make an argument against them, with the exception of one. Dixie is of course Dixie Kong, and she was intended to be a newcomer as a duo character next to Diddy Kong. In Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, Diddy and Dixie are the two playable characters and will often swap places in order to use their different abilities. This was intended to be how the character would work, having them swap back and forth as part of their moveset. Technical issues halted this idea, and Diddy was instead added as a solo fighter. Dr. Mario was also intended to return as a clone of Mario. There are even files in the game named Mario D, which were previously thought to be a debug character. However, with Smash 4 bringing Dr. Mario back and his files being named Mario D in that game, this is further evidence that Mario D in Brawl was likely meant to be Dr. Mario. Mewtwo seemed to have decent progress in his development for the game before being suddenly cut. He had an unused fanfare, an effects file for his psychic energy moves, and a Wii Remote selection sound for the character select screen. Why he was cut is unknown. Roy was also intended before being cut and also had an unused fanfare in the game's files. I mentioned that one of the characters is debatable, and that is Prom I. There are several theories regarding this character slot. The most common is Plusle and Minun, relating to their Japanese names Parasuru and Minun. The trouble is the only other duo character, Ice Climbers, both have separate character files for each fighter, but Prom I is one file. So this would be a strange disconnect in the programming, as it would make sense that if they were going to do another duo character, they would use a previous duo character as a base. And with Diddy and Dixie planning on being another duo character and them being separate, it makes even less sense if this were the case. Another theory is that Prom I is Japanese that stands for every player. Mai can be translated to every, while Pra can be translated to player. From this, two theories have sprouted up. The first is that it's simply a file name for the random button on the CSS. The other is that it means the Mies, which would be customizable in any way and would make sense as being abbreviated as every player. Personally, I lean towards Mies, as Sakurai has stated in interviews that they were initially considered for Brawl but were ultimately passed on. So perhaps they laid a very basic groundwork before finally deciding Mies couldn't be in Brawl. Toon Zelda and Toon Sheik are pretty self-explanatory. Brawl took young Link and changed him into Toon Link to represent Wind Waker and a totally different style of Zelda game. Maybe they wanted a Toon Zelda to join Toon Link. Toon Sheik does seem to trip people up, however, as there has never been a Sheik in the Wind Waker branch of Zelda games. It's theorized that this could have been Toon Tetra, the original form Zelda took in Wind Waker before being awoken as the princess. A counter to this is that Twilight Princess Zelda also has a Sheik transformation in Brawl, yet Sheik did not appear in Twilight Princess at all. So it truly could have been a Toon Sheik that was made specifically just for Smash. Either of these theories seem plausible, but you'd think that if they planned for Tetra to be the playable Toon transformation, then the files would be named Toon Tetra, not Toon Sheik. Aside from the hard evidence that these characters had plans to exist in some form in Brawl, there were additional characters that were considered but were dropped for one reason or another. Pac-Man was considered and was a request by Shigeru Miyamoto himself, but Sakurai said that Pac-Man's pizza-shaped design was a bit too far-fetched. Animal Crossing's Villager was also considered during the game's planning stages, but Sakurai felt he wasn't suited for battle. And as stated before, Miis were also considered, but Sakurai felt that it didn't really seem right at the time for Miis to be punching and kicking. They were also passed on to reduce online bullying. All three of these characters, despite being rejected in previous games, showed up in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. Geno was also considered for Brawl as he is a personal favorite of Sakurai's, as well as being immensely popular and fitting in the Smash universe very seamlessly. For Brawl, legal issues with Square Enix prevented Geno from being added in, and even though Square characters have since been included, Geno has never joined the battle fully. Blastoise was considered to be a part of Pokemon Trainer's team, but Squirtle was decided on because he, quote, established himself as a character better than Blastoise, which probably just means he has more personality. On top of that, the balance between having Stage 1, Stage 2, and Final Evolution Pokemon, as well as their varying sizes, gave the character a deeper playstyle. Finally, Crystal from Star Fox was considered, but time concerns had Wolf chosen over Crystal because Wolf could rely on Fox and Falco's pre-existing model and attacks, while Crystal would need to be made from scratch. And that is literally only the discussion on characters. There's still a ton of unused data, but this game had the most potential for characters that never made it. The characters who did make it into Smash also had some plans that would be scrapped. Captain Falcon had an unused ending to his final Smash, which would later go on to appear in Smash for 3DS and Wii U and Ultimate. Kirby has an animation which indicates that he would charge up and be able to walk around with his hammer. This was passed on in Brawl, but ultimately became reality in 3DS and Wii U. Zero Suit Samus has a handful of unused animations which seem to suggest that her Plasma Whip would be able to grab items and subsequently throw them. The theory on why this was passed on is that it would be too difficult for the game to decide what to do if a character and an item were overlapping. Fox and Falco both have animations for what seems to be their blasters misfiring. This is probably meant to be a punishment for overusing their blasters, but it ended up being passed on. Diddy Kong has a pair of laughing animations relating to his down special, Banana Toss. This would probably be played after one of his bananas tripped an opponent. Wolf has an unused animation that is simply a copy of Fox's Rapid Kick. Because Wolf is heavily based on both Fox and Falco, this was probably brought over during that time and it was simply left over when developers decided on a different jab. Peach was probably meant to have Parry, her parasol from Super Princess Peach, in her moveset rather than her normal parasol. The file naming conventions for both the Parry trophy and Peach's files match up exactly, and so this was probably in the game at some point before they decided to switch it back. Finally, Pokemon Trainer has a set of jumping, falling, and landing animations. These are probably meant for Subspace Emissary or for larger stages to have Pokemon Trainer physically follow the Pokemon around. However, in the final game, the trainer simply teleports to a new location instead of physically moving there. Now, not strictly related to characters, but a file can be found which seems to indicate that Ridley was going to be an assist trophy. However, this was probably made very early on before they decided to make Ridley and Meta Ridley bosses instead. Surprisingly, stages don't have very much changed, though this was probably because information for Brawl was revealed on the website in screenshots rather than in videos shown at press shows, so they were able to limit exactly what was being shown. Still, a few fell through the cracks. First, Pokemon Stadium 2 was shown off with the giant screen lacking graphics, just like Pokemon Stadium 1 from Melee, and it's probably because they weren't programmed yet. Shadow Moses Island had an outdoors area, which is shown in a screenshot in a Nintendo World Report trailer. The E3 2006 trailer also has a few neat details in one shot. The first is that Snake's cardboard box can be seen in the background of the stage. This isn't possible in the normal game, and it was probably just done as a form of continuity for the Snake reveal, which happened a few moments later. Second, you'll notice that Battlefield actually doesn't have any platforms. Now, this was probably just to keep the trailer as clean as possible, but this could potentially be the very first Omega stage. While Omega forms were done as an olive branch to the competitive community in Smash 4, I think this is probably the earliest form of a Smash Bros. Stage that isn't Final Destination, being entirely flat with no platforms. Brawl was also originally going to have a damage system that would impact the player's appearance the more damage they took. Sakurai discussed this in an interview, stating that not only would appearance be affected, but swords would break and equipment would be destroyed, sort of as a comeback factor. Players that lasted longer would be at more of a disadvantage, and Brawl's design was all about evening the playing field as much as possible. While this concept was ultimately scrapped, early textures still exist. Captain Falcon's helmet would break, revealing part of his eye and face. Meta Knight's mask would crack all the way across, and Link's shield and Master Sword would both have slices and cracks in them. As Sakurai said, they could both crack and break completely, and Link's Master Sword had some additional files indicating a completely broken Master Sword. Marth and Ike also have cracked textures for the Falchion and Ragnell, and Lucas even has broken textures for his stick bat. Bridge of Eldin has an unused model of Colin being tied to a spear. That gets exactly one yike from me, and it was ultimately covered up by other models on the stage. And lastly, 16 different characters have an additional trophy available showing a third pose, a feature which began in Melee. Modders have been able to apply these to the trophy model to show what it would have looked like in-game had this feature made it to the final version. And that pretty much does it for all of the major unused and hidden content inside of Brawl. A ton of it has to do with scrapped characters or concepts that were planned and considered but then ended up being left on the cutting room floor. There are a few more minor things as well, like adjusted stage lighting or files that go unused, but for the most part I covered all of the interesting stuff. So I'd love to know, what was your favorite bit of trivia? Let me know down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video then please be sure to hit the like button. If you guys are new to the channel, then please be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.